Yeah, good afternoon, students. So, let us discuss about the banking law. Especially, we are going to discuss about the history of banking law. So, when we go to history, we know that long ago, even before the British came, people in Indian villages did not have a big fancy banks. Right, when someone needed money for a wedding purpose, yeah, for a farming purpose, yeah, for anything, they went to their neighbor. Yeah, they used to go for saukar, a rich man in the village, and people trusted each other in small communities and helped with money. And this concept is known as indigenous banking system. It was very simple, personal, but sometimes it was very risky also, right? Because in ancient there was no bank system, there was no concept of bank. They used to go to neighbor, yeah, they used to go for the anyone who is rich like a sokar, right? They used to take a loan from him. They used to trust each other and help each other with their money. So this is known as indigenous banking system. It was very simple. Now when it comes to the pre-independence period, now especially I'm talking about the when British came into the India, right? So the British arrived, fine, and we got the banks. That is pre-independence period. So in the year 1770, the first bank in India was born in Calcutta. It was called Bank of Hindustan. Bank of Hindustan, and it was started and managed by Europeans. But sadly, it closed down after 1832, and there was no benefit for the Indians. It was only used for the Europeans and British people. For Indian, it was not useful at all. And then the British East India said we need strong banks for trade purpose and business purpose. So in between the 1806 to 1842, right, the British, what they did means they opened three big presidency banks. That is Bank of Bengal, Bank of Bombay, Bank of Madras. And these banks worked in different parts of India. So in 1921, these banks were merged into one called Imperial Bank of India. Right now we are calling as State Bank of India at present. But in 1921, these three banks were merged into one called Imperial Bank of India. And later during this time, many other banks are also opened. That means 600 banks were registered in India and only few were survived, like they are Bank of India, Punjab National Bank, Allahabad Bank, Canara Bank, Bank of Baroda, right? And but there was a problem. More than 600 banks were opened, but only few were strong, and most people in the villages still didn't have proper banks, right? So this was the scenario in the pre-independence period. So when it comes to the post-independence period, right, so what happened here means, like, India got the freedom. It became free in 1947. Our leaders looked at the banks and they said these banks are mostly helping only rich people and big cities, and they are operating only in the big cities. What about the poor people, farmers, and what about the villages, right? And many banks were also in the hands of private hands. That means in the hands of many lenders, in the hands of rich individuals, and they were not serving poor people, farmers, rural people. And government wanted to control or banking so that they can build a nation building, right? So what happened, the government has taken a big step in the post independence period. So in 1949, what the government did means they passed the Banking Regulation Act. It was passed, and through this they have nationalized the RBI, Reserve Bank of India. It's the boss of all the banks, right? So in 1955, imperial banks were nationalized, right? And they are called as, now at present it is called as what SBI, State Bank of India, and it is the biggest public sector bank even today, and it was nationalized by Indira Gandhi, right, the Prime Minister, and she has taken the big historic decisions that under her 14 big banks were nationalized. That means government has taken over these 14 big banks and they were nationalized, and in 1980 six more banks were nationalized, so total 20 major banks came under the government control, right? So those are Allahabad Bank, Bank of Baroda, Bank of Maharashtra, Canara Bank, Indian Bank, Indian Overseas Bank, Punjab National Bank, etc. So why they did means, why they nationalize means, because they wanted to take this banking system to every village, and they wanted to give loans to the farmers also, even for the poor people also, even for the small business people also, and they wanted to reduce the rich money lenders, the power of the rich money lenders, and they wanted to use people savings, especially underline, they wanted to use people savings for building the nation, right? So we can say that in this period banks spread like a big green tree across the India, even in small town also, even in the villages also, right? So this is what about, this is the scenario of post independence, we can say. Here we got nationalized, the government has taken control over the bank. And next is liberalization period. Till date what happened, right? We know in 1991 India faced a very big economic crisis. The government opened the doors, right? And it said, let's bring new ideas. So we got liberalization. We has to make everything free. So here RBI given the license to the private bank to permission to start. So we got the private banks also, like ICICI, HDFC, Axis Bank, Kotak Mahindra, etc. And we even allowed foreign banks also allowed to work with the Indian banks, isn't it? And new private banks got permission to start also, and foreign banks were also allowed to work with the Indian banks. Suddenly everything changed in the liberalization period, right? And now if you see the present system, you could do banking on your mobile phone, you can use phone pay, Google Pay, right? And you can use internet banking, ATMs, and even in the villages also they started to use mobile banking. So every lenders, vendors, even they started to use the banking. So the government also started many schemes so that poor people persons could open a bank account, like a zero account, Jan Dhan Yojana, isn't it? So what we can say means, uh, the aim why they have nationalized, why the government has taken the control over the banks means to serve the people, help the poor, grow the country, and keep people's money safe. Because of this we have nationalized the bank, right? Any doubt till here? If you have doubt you can ask me. No doubt now? Okay, thank you.